Thank you very much, Marty. It's good to be with all of you this morning. First of all, if you were confused by the program, I am not Fred Butler. As Marty said, my name is Rick Morgan. I'm a commissioner here in the District of Columbia. Fred, as you probably know, is president of NARUC, and I understand that he was called in to meet his governor today. I trust that that's good news and not bad news. A couple of people suggested that I was chosen to fill in for Fred because of our physical resemblance. I'm about the same height as Fred. We both have dark hair and beards, and we think pretty much alike. So at least you're going to hear about the same speech from me as you would have heard from Fred. What you're not going to hear, though, are any of those self-deprecating New Jersey jokes that Fred is famous for, because they just wouldn't sound right coming from me. NARUC's membership in... I'm sorry, I skipped a page here. The District of Columbia may not have voting representation in Congress, at least not yet. But we do regulate utilities just like the other 50 states. And as part of my role as a utility regulator, I am active in NARUC. I serve on NARUC's board of directors, and as Marty mentioned, I also serve as leader of NARUC's Task Force on Climate Policy. And I'll be speaking to you today in both of those capacities. NARUC's membership includes state public service commissioners from all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the U.S. territories. Our 220-plus member commissioners regulate essential utility services such as electricity, natural gas, water, telecommunications, and in some cases, transportation. As regulators, we're responsible for assuring that customers pay fair, just, reasonable, and affordable rates for reliable utility services. Well, when I saw the title of my presentation, State Regulators Get Proactive, I had to chuckle a little bit. Having been involved in utility regulation for more than 3 decades, I think it's fair to say that regulators have been proactive, and they continue to be so. Many of the issues that Congress has been focusing on recently, energy efficiency, transmission, renewable generation, smart grid, the list goes on, have been on the agendas of state regulators for many years. As the laboratories of democracy, the states have been on the cutting edge of these issues for a long time. The challenges that we face are almost innumerable: keeping utility services reliable and affordable, greening our electricity supply, modernizing the transmission system, and combating climate change, among others. As a state regulator, and in addition to protecting consumers, I am responsible for ensuring that utilities remain financially viable to attract capital that they need for updating, maintaining, and expanding their networks. Given the current economic environment, making these assurances is becoming harder and harder. Consumers are clearly more cash-strapped than ever, and energy costs keep going up. And this is before we add in the costs of anticipated new environmental regulations, the cost of transmission expansion, and other expenses. In fact, a report that NARUC released last December concluded that during the 2007-2008 winter heating season, approximately 1/5 of all U.S. households were behind in their energy payments. This survey reported that during the calendar year 2007, there were 8.7 million consumers that had their utility services disconnected. In this economy, I don't need to tell you, the situation is likely to get worse and not better. I mention this because as we consider needed investments in the energy infrastructure, we also need to think about the impact on the end user. At the state level, we see these challenges as opportunities to demonstrate the innovative work that we've been doing on issues like energy efficiency, demand response, long-term procurement, and grid modernization. As I said at the outset, states have been proactive on these issues for years. Look at the energy efficiency we've seen in states like California and Oregon. For example, California's adoption of decoupling and other policies that emphasize energy efficiency has enabled the state to keep per-customer usage of electricity virtually flat since the 1970s, while usage has continued to grow in the rest of the country. Other states have taken different approaches. In Vermont, for example, they created an energy efficiency utility that provides energy services. The program, which is known as Efficiency Vermont, saves the state approximately $5.7 million annually in energy use, in energy costs. These are just a couple of the examples of the innovative work that states have been pursuing for decades. Another example is the work that NARUC and its member states have been doing through the National Action Plan on Energy Efficiency, which is a joint effort with the U.S. EPA, the Department of Energy, and many, many other stakeholders. Other issues like demand response, long-term procurement, and grid modernization, we have joined up with our colleagues at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission in launching a series of collaborative efforts. The FERC-NARUC Demand Response Collaborative was established in November 2006. The Collaborative on Competitive Procurement, which is chaired by Commissioner Mark Spitzer, co-chaired along with a NARUC representative, was formed in February 2007. And the Smart Grid Collaborative, of which I'm a member, was started about a year ago. These efforts recognize the leadership role that states play while also demonstrating the need to work in partnership with our colleagues at the federal level in order to address some of these cross-jurisdictional issues. Another area where states are taking charge is on climate change. In the Mid-Atlantic region, where I'm from, there is a regional greenhouse gas initiative that covers the northeastern part of the U.S. It's the nation's first functioning carbon trading market. Similar regional carbon trading efforts are under development in both the Midwest and the West, and include several Canadian provinces as well. At NARUC, about 2 years ago, we formed the Task Force on Climate Policy, which is a group of 10 state regulators from across the country, and I'm privileged to be the leader. The Climate Task Force has shaped NARUC's climate policy to date on climate issues, and in November 2007, NARUC issued a policy resolution in support of carefully designed federal actions to limit greenhouse gas emissions. NARUC reached this position because, as regulators, we feel a critical need for certainty from the federal government as we plan the next round of energy infrastructure investment. We need to know what the environmental regulations are going to be, and the utilities that we regulate need to know that as well. NARUC has outlined a number of principles that we believe should apply, assuming that Congress chooses to adopt a cap-and-trade mechanism to limit greenhouse gas emissions. Like President Obama, NARUC supports an auction of allowances as the most efficient way to distribute emission allowances. However, we do feel that it may be necessary to allocate some allowances at no cost during a transition period in order to minimize some of the economic dislocations that are likely to occur. Significantly, NARUC advocates that any free emissions allowances within the electricity sector should be allocated only to regulated entities, the local distribution companies that are regulated in every case. This would enable state regulators to make sure that the benefits of these free allowances are flowed through to consumer, and this can help to ease some of the transitional challenges of implementing a climate change policy at the national level. NARUC has adopted yet another resolution on climate in November 2007 that's really directed toward our own members. It encourages state commissions to consider policy approaches and regulatory tools that will help to maintain the electricity system reliability and minimize risks associated with climate change, and thereby minimize the economic impacts on consumers. Congress and the Obama administration have made clear that they intend to move expeditiously on climate issues, and NARUC expects to be an active participant in this process. The voice of state regulators is critical to the debate because we understand how these regulations will impact end-use consumers. I'd like to shift gears for just a moment and briefly discuss transmission policy. Before you ask, let me just say at the outset, NARUC is still analyzing the transmission bill that Senator Reid introduced last week. We've been in communication with Senator Reid's staff during the drafting process, and we appreciate that Senator Reid has been willing to work with us on this issue. I'm sure it will come as no surprise that NARUC has long taken the stance that additional federal jurisdiction over transmission siting is not necessary. Congress only 3 years ago gave the federal government backstop siting authority for congested regions, and we would like to see this process be given a chance to work before starting over with a new approach. Siting of transmission is a difficult and sensitive process. When new projects are proposed, states are typically required to consider all alternatives before signing off on any new transmission lines. This gives all parties, utilities, consumers, landowners, everyone, a chance to have their voices heard so that the best decision can be made. In conclusion, I sincerely believe that state regulators are being proactive as the industries that we regulate face unprecedented challenges. We're adopting innovative policies at the state level. We're working together regionally. We're working with our federal counterparts to address the many challenges before us. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing from my colleagues on the panel.